In this video, we're going to talk about topic 3.3, solids, liquids, and gases. A lot of this is review of just properties of solids, liquids, and gases, what the particles look like, how tightly packed they are, how fast they move, things like that. So particle characteristics of solid. The motion of individual particles is limited. The motion that we see for solids is mostly just vibrational. So they vibrate in place. They can rotate a little bit, but there is no translational movement. So they can't go from one side of the solid to the other side of the solid. The particles are very close together. The structures are held together by intermolecular forces and or chemical bonds, depending on what type of solid we're talking about. And then the structure is influenced by the ability of the particles to pack together. So some particles are able to pack really nicely together. Some particles are going to be more sporadic. It just depends on what type of solid we're looking at. So that leads us to amorphous solids. Amorphous solids have a random arrangement of particles. So think back to every time somebody has asked you to draw, what do you think the particles in a solid look like? And you draw them really nicely, neatly organized, stacked on top of each other. That is not an amorphous solid. They have no orderly structure. Their macroscopic structures lack well-defined faces and shapes. Many are mixtures of molecules that do not stack up well together. And our examples are glass and rubber. If I look at a crystalline solid, this is more of what you would draw, where you have those nice, neat, orderly circles. The atoms, ions, or molecules are arranged in an orderly fashion that follows a pattern of repetition in 3 dimensions. We get those unit cells that we've talked about before, but you probably will never see again. The macroscopic structures usually have flat surfaces that make definite angles to one another. So quartz and ionic solids like salt are crystalline. Think about quartz like if you've ever seen quartz, or if you like have a geode and you break it open and you see all those pretty crystals in there, how they have the flat sides, the flat surfaces on the sides of the crystals. That's what we're talking about. So here's a particle diagram. This one over here is an amorphous solid like glass. So notice that these are not neatly arranged. Think about when glass breaks, how it breaks into a bunch of tiny little pieces that are differently shaped. If I were to break quartz, it would break into smaller structures that look exactly the same. All right, moving on to liquids. Particles are constantly moving and colliding with one another. They undergo translation with respect to one another. So that means for our liquids, they can go from one side of the container to the other. If you flip over your water bottle, those water molecules are going to move all around inside of that container. Movement is influenced by the strength of intermolecular forces that are present between the particles and the temperature. So think about, we talked about something with viscosity before, like if I have molasses or honey and I've tried to pour them, their intermolecular forces are strong. So those particles are stay together, or it takes it a long time for it to flow out of the container. On this slide, we're going to talk about the volume of solid and liquid phases. So the solid and liquid phases for a particular substance normally have similar molar volumes. So like if I have 10 liters of something, it has about a mole of something in it, or something like that. It's going to have about the same amount of particles that take up the same amount of volume. The density of the particles is similar in both phases. Yes, they're going to be different. Like usually things are going to sink or float within its own substance, but they're not that different. Water's weird. We've said this before. Ice has a slightly larger molar volume than liquid water. So that's because the ice spreads out to form those nice, neat hydrogen bonds. Most solids, though, have a slightly smaller molar volume than liquids, and they will sink in the liquid version of themselves. All right, so in the solid phase, they can usually line up really nice and have these really pretty intermolecular forces, these little attractions happening here. In the liquid phase, they're a little more sporadic. All right, let's talk about pressure. Pressure is equal to force per unit area. So if you know anything about physics, force in newtons, so it's newtons per meter squared is pressure. So gases exert pressure by bouncing off of surfaces. Guess what, guys? You know this already. Gases exert pressure by bouncing off of surface. So we're going to write collisions cause pressure. Don't forget that. Collisions cause pressure. Gas particles are evenly distributed in their container, so the same number smash off of every centimeter squared per unit of time. Each collision exerts a force. The pressure is constant at constant temperatures. All right, so here's our little guy. This is you. All of these gas molecules are hitting you as you're sitting here listening to this video. They are smashing into your face. They're smashing into your body, your arms, the table you're sitting at, and it's coming from all different directions. So we've seen this demonstration too. I actually just did it in my CP class. So if we suck gas particles out of a can, so you can see in this picture here on the left, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 particles on the outside, and I believe there's 8 particles on the inside. If I take some of those particles out, the pressure inside is going to be less than the pressure outside. So this pressure on the outside is going to push, it's going to implode this can. It's the same with that, the can in water, the crushing of the can, the pop can. All right, moving on to a barometer. We've talked about barometers too. So atmospheric pressure is going to push on the open end of the tube. That's going to push the mercury, and depending on how much it pushes, that's going to push the mercury up the tube here that is closed in a vacuum. And then what we do is we measure the height. Whatever this height is here, that's our pressure in millimeters of mercury. So they literally measure the millimeters of this tube here, and that tells us the pressure. Here's a conversion factor that you should already be familiar with. 1 atmosphere is equal to 760 millimeters of mercury, or 760 torr. So now we're going to get into some gas laws. So we have Boyle's law first. This is our relationship between pressure and volume of gases. They have it listed as V1P1 equals V2P2. We've always said P1V1 equals P2V2. Same thing, don't let that confuse you. So they are inversely proportional. So that means if my pressure goes up, my volume goes down. Or if my pressure goes down, my volume goes up. So here's that relationship in picture form. So in this picture on the left, we have a large volume, and then our pressure arrow up here is not as big. There we go. If I increase the pressure twice as the amount of pressure, that's going to cut my volume in half. So there's less space down here for these particles to move around. If they have less space to move around, they're going to collide more, which creates more pressure. Collisions cause pressure. All right, temperature. When we talk about temperature and any of our gas laws, we have to have them in the Kelvin scale, because the Kelvin scale is proportional to the average kinetic energy of our atoms and molecules. So when the kinetic energy doubles, the Kelvin temperature doubles. So remember, if we have our degrees Celsius, to get it into Kelvin, we're going to add this magic number 273. All right, kinetic energy of gas molecules. They have translational energy. That means they can move through space in straight lines. They can go from one side of the room to the other. Rotational energy. They can spin. They can rotate within space. And then they do vibrate within the bonds and stuff a little bit too. Remember, we've talked about how the bond is like a spring, and they can vibrate within that molecule as well. Most of a gas particle's kinetic energy is related to its translational velocity, though. How fast is it moving throughout its container? All right, then we have Charles' law. Charles' law is about temperature and volume. So this equation is V1 over T1 equals V2 over T2. Volume is proportional to temperature, so that means if my volume goes up, my temperature goes up. or if my volume goes down, my temperature also goes down. But do not forget, you must use absolute temperature. Your temperature must be in the Kelvin scale. So add 273 to those degrees Celsius. So here's a picture of that one. In the container on the left, we are at 500 K, and we can see those molecules are moving quite quickly around there. How do I know they're moving quickly? Look at the arrows. See how these arrows are longer in general compared to these arrows? The longer the arrow, the faster or the greater the velocity of the molecules. If I cut that volume in half, so notice this box is about half as big as the other one, then our temperature also gets cut in half. Some properties of gases: those particles are constantly moving. They are going to expand to fill the volume of the container they occupy. They form homogeneous mixtures. That means, again, that they're going to mix up really, really well, mix up evenly with whatever else is in the container with them. They have a low density. They take up a big volume, and there's not a lot of stuff in that space. There's not a heavy or a great amount of mass within that big volume. They are highly compressible. Lots of space between those particles, so we're able to squish them closer together. And they do exert a pressure by colliding with other things. They can collide with each other, they can collide with the walls of the container, all of that stuff. Gases do not have a definite shape or a definite volume because they are constantly moving, and ideally there's no force of attraction between them. We know they're going to take the shape of their container. We know that they are going to take the volume of the container that they're in. Collision frequency and density of the gas particles is going to depend on the pressure, the volume, and the temperature. So we'll need to think about those variables when we're thinking about different things like that. And then here's just a picture to kind of wrap up. Notice in this one, with our solid, we have these intermolecular forces, or these forces of attraction. We still have them in a liquid, but they're more sporadic, more spread out. Some of them are further away, so that would be a weaker force of attraction. Think Coulomb's law. And then in our gas phase, we don't see those at all, ideally. So they are so far apart that they're not able to form those forces of attraction.